Alrighty, folks. Hello, and welcome to our livecast blab today. My name is Mike Gingrich. I am the president of Digital Hill Multimedia, co-founder of TabSite, and a podcaster at Halftime Mike. And so thrilled to bring you three of my industry colleagues. And we're going to have a great topic today on business websites, what matters today and what you need to know about. And we're going to dive into the details here. Give you a little background as we get started here. So we're looking at probably somewhere around a 30-minute time together here. And our moderator is going to be my good friend from Most Training, Donna Gilliland, all the way from Birmingham, Alabama. So Donna, why don't you give us a little bit more details and welcome everyone else.
Okay. All right. Well, the quick details on me. MOS, M-O-S, stands for Mobile, Office, and Social Media Technologies. So those are the three core areas I teach in. My background is in corporate technology training, and I've been doing that for 25 years. And MOS Training is approaching 12 years in May. So that's the short story. So let's get started with me introducing our two ladies down below. And I'm going to start with Gina Sreck, who I met online, then in person, but that's another story, and we don't have time for that now. So let me get into all the goodness about Gina Sreck. She is president of Social Connects. So those last three letters, it's KNX, Social Connects. She's a content marketing and social media marketing company. They also build websites and social sites. And she says they stay away from parasites. That's what she sent me. That's what she sent me. So I don't make this stuff up. So going on to Jessica Phillips. She is known as the superwoman of internet marketing, and she is the president and founder of Now Marketing Group. So with that, I will launch us with our first question. I'm really excited about this topic. I see within my own training how people still don't have websites, or if they do, they maybe have been there 10 or 15 years and nothing's been done with it yet. So let's start off with question number one, and then whoever would like to answer or expand upon, we'll go from there. So the first one is, the question is, what are the top 3 reasons that everyone should have a website? What would you tell the audience?
Okay, well, I'm going to jump in and say, I'll give you the top reason, and that is that it's your home base online. It's your real estate, and every business needs to have that real estate just because of all the volume of people that are looking for you online. That's a key. So I'll start with that number one reason. Let Gina, you want to go for another one?
I mean, that is, you need a place in case, who knows, Mark Zuckerberg could get on the moon and take these journeys to Mars or something, and Facebook goes under. You need a home base. I also think it makes you a little more legitimate. I think if somebody wants to check you out and they can't find a website and you only have a Facebook page, I think it can help your business appear more legitimate.
Yes.
Absolutely. Agreed.
I agree with both of the things you just said. And just to tie off what you said about Mark Zuckerberg, prime example of what happened to Social Media Examiner earlier this week. Their Facebook page disappeared. 300,000 fans that they're used to connecting with gone in that instant. So they had to have that home base in order to connect with everyone and tell everybody what's happening and what's going on. So that home base is crucial. And yes, legitimacy is definitely another, and a way to bring people into your funnel and to convert them, to stay in touch with them and to drip campaign. You're not sure if they see all the content that you're putting out on social. They may be a hit or miss for some people, but you own your content. You can make your changes and nurture your leads properly with having your home base of a website.
And I say, it's 24/7. I mean, because your business hours, you may only be open 8 to 5 or whatever, but 8 o'clock at night, someone wants to know information. Nowadays they are looking you up on their phone, and that's why you need to be there. Coming back to Jessica, your Social Media Examiner points, tremendous thing. And just to explain a little bit further, I mean, every other social media network, when you talk about Facebook page, you talk about your YouTube channel, you talk about your Twitter account, any of those pieces, these are rented space. It's somebody else's social media platform. You don't own the domain name to that. You don't have any involvement with where that's hosted at. And so those social media networks could shift. They could go away. They could have problems, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. But your website, you can own that domain name. You can know where it's hosted at. You can control that space, and that's why that's so important.
Yeah, what they say, don't build your house on borrowed land.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Shifting sand.
Invest in your own real estate so you can keep it.
Yeah.
Yes. That's
Right. So are you ready for me to move on to question 2?
Let's do it.
Okay, here we go. So question 2, mobile responsive. I still see where people don't have a mobile responsive site, nor do they know what mobile responsive is. So what's a reason? First, explain mobile responsive just in case there are those that might not know what that term means, and then expand beyond that with a reason why a mobile responsive site is so critical.
Okay. Gina, you want to dive in first?
Yeah, first thing is to understand the difference between mobile responsive and just a mobile site. Because for a lot of years, people just said, "Oh, I need a mobile site," and there were all these places you can go and build a mobile version of your site, which just was a different type of content. And we had one, and I hated it. You still couldn't read anything on it, or the buttons were real big, and but it was kind of that first step. Responsive is just, regardless of the device I look at, my site will respond, stretch, move, and change to fit that device. And Google has said, hey, everyone's using their mobile devices. Everyone needs a responsive site. And just to accommodate consumers now who are doing everything on their mobile devices. Hopefully that's a non-geeky explanation.
I thought it was excellent. Very non-geeky. Very non-geeky.
That's right.
Yep.
So who would like to expand on that or add to it?
Stretch, add.
Yes, stretch, add. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, go for it, Jessica.
Okay, so actually we're talking about the subject before too, and it's so important, and we feel like we have to keep explaining this definitely about responsive design. One, you have to think mobile first. You have to go and optimize for where the user is and how they would like to expand and consume your content. And if you design mobile first and think backward where people are at, then they're going to just have a better experience overall. So just think about the experience that people are wanting to have on your site. And that's why responsive, and definitely why it's important, is because you're going to want to keep your search engine optimization, and Google is rewarding responsive design, and Bing is rewarding responsive design as part of just having it there and thinking about the user and the user experience. So definitely SEO benefits to that.
Yep. And that's what I would dive into, that people that are thinking about whether they should go to a mobile responsive site need to take into the consideration that Google made a change in April of this year, and they began to rank higher those sites that are mobile friendly. They moved it into their algorithm. So when you type in, a search term, and maybe it's for your service, something that you offer, you have a better chance of ranking higher, top 5 kind of results, that you want if your site is mobile friendly, and they will actually ding you. So your site is going to get dropped in search results if that's not the case. So that's on Google, which, has 69% of market share of search. And then even Bing followed suit in the summer, a few months later there. So, that's another important reason that you need a mobile site, and you need a site. What are the trends that people are using their smartphones more and more, and people using the internet on smartphones has surpassed the use of that on a desktop on a daily basis.
And I'll add, regardless of anything, take your mobile device. I shouldn't say just mobile device, because a tablet is one thing, but take your smallest mobile device and look up your own website and just look at things like, how easy is it to click a link? Because sometimes your links are so close together on the top navigation that picture people with fat fingers, which
that's right.
Most guys, they go to push one button and it bleeds over and pushes 2 buttons and 2 links. And so explore your website on your smallest mobile device that you can get your hands on and just look at it. I mean, we found ours was a responsive mobile site, but we found as we were scrolling through pages, because again, it may look okay on your main pages, but scroll through all your pages. We found one that, I don't know why, but it threw it into a format where it was 1 word per line. And so it was like an eye test on our site. We were like, what is up with that? So don't just trust that your web designer says, yes, you have a mobile site. Get on your phone and check out your own site. How easy is it? That's really important.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's critical, and the it comes back to that, like you said, call it the fat finger test.
Yes.
You can make it easy for people to navigate.
Use your fattest finger on your smallest device.
Yeah, if they have to pinch, it's not happening, and they're moving away quickly.
And look at out of the four of us, 3 of us are wearing glasses.
Yes.
So that's another thing I look at is I have to put my
eyes are
glasses on now to see. Yeah, put your glasses on so you can.
Yeah, Jessica, put your glasses on.
I don't have them, but I probably should. I'm always squinting.
I try to pretend like I can, and I'll take them off, and then usually when I look at the video, the whole time I'm going like this. I'm going,
yeah.
But
I always take mine off if I don't have to read. It's a vanity thing, at least for me.
But if you try to look at your site, picture people needing, if you're having to stretch things out just to see one word, you need to fix that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And going through and testing the pages, that's a really good point. I have a link if you want to scan and test your cross-browser test. I'll put a link in here if you want to test and see what it looks like on all different devices too, to test and see if it's responsive, and then what your experience of the website would look like. So one button and put your site in, and it'll give you screenshots of every different platform.
I think too many people, especially small businesses, they trust that their web designer said, you have a mobile site or you have a responsive site. And they just go, okay, good. Check that off the list. It's like, you need to go and look for yourself at every page, blog posts, everything.
Mm-hmm. And I think they even underestimate the importance of that. They're like, hey, we got a website, that was 3 years ago. We got our website up. So, why do we need to really be thinking about this? Isn't that just another upsell? And, it's not with the trends. I mean, people are using their mobile devices. And then, with search engines ranking mobile friendly sites higher, it's just important that they take a look at that. It's a critical online business decision these days.
Mm-hmm. So
I had a customer just the other day. She wanted to get some changes done to her website. We're going to talk more about WordPress sites in a moment, but she didn't know what the term mobile responsive was. But, if you're not in the business like we are in or others, well, then that might not be such a familiar term and you don't know what that means. So she called to ask them, she was wanting to make changes. I have changes made to the site. And I said, you need to find out what your site looks like on mobile, like we're discussing now. And of course, it didn't render well. And I said, you need to go back and ask them, is your site mobile responsive? Of course, I knew by looking at it, it wasn't.
Right.
So she went back and asked and said no. And I guess that would be another fee, I suppose, for them. So would you like me to move to the next question or any more expansion on mobile responsive?
Just if you're not sure, here's a link right here in the comments. You can test to see if your site is responsive.
Awesome. Excellent.
And then the one above it will test it across all browsers and mobile devices.
Good. Thank you, Jessica.
No problem.
All right. Well, then on to the next question then. We have, and here's a third one. Keeping content fresh. Now, we understand why it's important to keep content fresh, but I don't think the general public who uses their website, general small business, or doesn't necessarily know why that's important. So if you could explain what that means and the reason why, and whoever would like to start first.
Jessica, how about it?
Oh, okay. So keeping your content fresh just means to always be answering questions, is how I like to explain it to clients, is that you always want to be answering questions. I mean, I'll use the example of just us here today. Like, as we're talking about things, I was like, oh, we just wrote a blog on that, and I'll post it in the comments, because you can always elaborate on questions that your clients are having and then just put it on your website, and you can never have enough good content. That's what the search engines are looking for. And then that's also what your clients are wanting. They're wanting that value added from you. And by elaborating on your content and answering their questions and helping them out with issues that they may be having, you can turn that into blogs that you can repurpose later on, send back to them.
And I'll jump in with something we started doing is a combination of taking your Google Analytics, and that might be a little technical for some people, but taking those and looking at which of your pages do the best, which pages do people spend most time on, then which pages are they spending the least amount of time on, and then the action that you take based on that is pick one page per week. And we just take one page per week, and we go in the back end and either rewrite some of the copy or maybe some of the keywords you used to use maybe have changed, but refresh one page on your website per week. And it really doesn't take that much time. It's probably 15, 20 minutes of exploring that. But I think that also helps keep your website fresh. I say back in the days, back in the old days, 3 years ago, do you remember? It was like we had websites that literally 6 months and not one thing had changed on that website. They were brochures that had dust on them. And so I think, today websites are more social in the nature that there's blogs on them. So I think looking at how can you keep your website really fresh, and maybe you add the FAQ page, and as you think of new questions from your consumers, add another question to your FAQ area. Those are ways that we look at, besides blogging, keeping your content fresh.
Yeah, that's good.
Yep. No, and I come back to it from a search engine perspective again, and that is that it is a ranking factor. So, Google is taking into account, they're scanning your site. Is there anything new? Is there anything new? Is there anything new? Right. And they're factoring that in, giving favorable results to those that are having new content, updated content that is showing that activity. And, that's from the search engine perspective. And then another factor in that search engine perspective is the more content that you add, the wider your footprint. Think about it, your home. If we said this was your home base again, you're adding square footage. You're expanding your footprint on your site, on your domain, on the web by having more content going out there. And you can begin to, gain a foothold in your industry by having more content, by answering questions, by answering problems, by talking about industry trends that are out there. And so, fresh content helps you from a getting found perspective, helps you from people that may not know about you, but have a certain problem they're trying to get solved. And if you've answered that, they can find you. And then that can lead them to your products or services. They may not find you for your product or service first, but it's expanding the ways that people can arrive at your site.
Yeah, that's great.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for your help.
I'd like to expand things further before we go.
How about
next?
you, Donna? You feel free to tweak in as well.
Well, we have so many great things to cover that I don't want to take more time than I need to. But I would like to interject on some terminology that's very familiar to us. But I work with small businesses a lot. So, for example, it's still very common for me to hear someone say that they don't understand what keywords mean. Or, for example, Google Analytics. Now, I realize that those two topics alone can be a lot of time, but if I'm going to defer to Gina and give us a quick definition for someone who doesn't know what those terms mean. Google Analytics starting first, and then follow that with keywords.
So, Google Analytics is a free tool, and I think it's a tool that carries a lot of intimidation around it, because when you do log in there, you just think you have to have a degree in data analytics to even understand it. But you can get lost in, and really, I think we find it fascinating to click around and see where does your traffic come from. And what I found out years later after having my business, that Google actually has a free course that you can go on and take. And it's like an hour video or 15-minute video chunks. And that really helped me just learn the basics of how to read your Google Analytics. But if you don't have Google Analytics code, this is where I always feel bad, because I always go, this gets a little geeky, but have somebody, if you don't like touching the back end of your website, have somebody put the little piece of code on your website. And then Google tracks things like, where do people come from and how much time do they spend on your site? It gives you such great data for understanding your business and understanding what you need to put differently on your site.
Thank you. That's good. Good explanation.
Yeah, and it's not as scary as you would think.
No, it's not. And you did a good job explaining those terms. Anyone like to expand on that further before I go to the next question? Lots of good stuff.
Yeah.
Yep,
as we say in the South,
y'all. Thing with Google Analytics.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, here we go. Let's see. And I'm going to start with Mike on this one. I'm going to go ahead and this one is, and then feel free, all of you, to expand. What would you say are the top items missing on websites today, Mike?
Okay. I think one of the ones that I see most frequently is some type of what I call lead capture. Something that is an incentive that invites them to take a next step where they move from just a website visitor to you having their name and email address. So I think from my perspective, that's one of the biggest ones. I think there's still too many people. Gina talked about already a little bit that brochure concept. That there's people that just have information out there. And I think that one of the biggest things that you need to do is you've got them there, and they're moving around the site. But what is some type of incentive that to sign up, whether it's a free ebook, a free resource, a video, that's something that they need to give you their name and email address for, something of value, but it's a freebie, but something that they can receive benefit from. That also you receive benefit from. You receive their name and email address. So I'm going to start with that as number one and let somebody else jump in on one of theirs.
Okay. And now I'll expand just a little bit on that, and then I'm going to go to Jessica and then to Gina. Is that I always tell people that for me personally, I consider my email address very important and I'm very wary about who I give it away to. So I make my decision on, one, what that content has been like on the website that I visit and how they've built credibility with me from me just observing what they do on a regular basis. And then I give my email address away freely because I feel like I'm going to get something in return for that. And then I encourage, just recently encouraged, which she did, to give a top 10 on her tips, which has to do with facial care, that type of thing, in order to get subscribers to her newsletter. So let me flip to Jessica, who could expand on that, and then to Gina.
Yeah, so I would say the thing that's missing out of websites, and Mike and I had a blab on this the other day, and I love this topic, but is definitely the inbound links and then the following up, but then also social media links. So the clients have came and we've seen their website before we've rebuilt it, and we've seen that they've had social media sites, but they're not on their website. And so they're not linking them together or following through or having blog articles that don't have the social sharing on it. So remembering just to intertwine everything, I would say, is really important on websites.
Oh, that's a good point. What about you, Gina?
Cross-pollinating. Yeah, to me, it is, like Mike said, call to actions. And looking at your site, again, with that eye of, if I came to just this page, what do you want me to do next? If I read just your blog post, what do you want me to do next? How do you keep me connected to you to that next step? And whether you call it a value offer, a lead magnet, which again can be a term that people hear all the time, but they don't understand how simple they can be to make. I mean, you just can create your top 10 list, but to your point, Donna, make sure they're valuable enough, because some people say, the top 10 reasons you should work with me. Give me your email address, I'll tell you. I'm like, that's not valuable. That's
not at all.
I see a lot of that. It's like, make sure your value offers are of value to me, not just promoting you, but anything that's of value, that's so valuable, I would exchange my email address for it. And I think having those call to actions on every page and at the bottom of every blog post, and then, just making it easy. We always look at it, is it easy to do business with you? And if I have to search around your stinking website for your phone number or I hate it when I'm looking for somebody's phone number and I'm going, how do they not have it on their website? Or how can I can't find their address? Or, look at it from the perspective of a total stranger coming to your site. There's probably things missing that are frustrating people, and they leave because you didn't make it easy to do business with you.
And that's really also a negative. It's a negative in a lot of ways. But when you're in a very competitive field, and as I say, there's one on every corner of certain business types, and we're all impatient. The technology's made us impatient. So if I go to a site researching for a service, and you aggravate me with me having to find what I'm looking for, then I'm going to leave that site and I'm going to go to the next one, because it's super easy for me to rapidly just go on to the next one. So it can result in lost business as a result.
Mike has a good thing on his website too. Mike, you want to talk about your your pop-up that you have.
Okay.
Love that
for
pop-up.
extra intent?
Yeah. So I do. If you come to my website at mikegingrich.com, and then if you can look around, and when you're getting ready to leave, I will deliver you a pop-up that invites you to sign up for a free resource that I'm offering there, and it's kind of related to some of the content that I offer. And that is called a pop-up box, and I'm using a tool called Opt-in Monster there. And the technical term is it's like on exit intent. Somebody's getting ready to move on from my site, and so at that point in time, I kind of want to re-engage them and say, hey, before you go, do you want to take a look at this resource? And so I've had good success with that type of pop-up, and it doesn't come up every time. Yeah. So that it's not bothering someone on each page that they go to on the site, that type of thing. But it is, you do need to take a look at ways to catch the eye, engage people, and a pop-up can be one of those type of lead capture opportunities.
Okay.
Yeah,
so smart.
Anything else on that before I move to the next question? I think we covered that really good.
You could do a whole blog just on value.
Yeah, you could write a whole several blog posts on that.
Right.
Okay, let's see. Let's talk about terms for a moment that I think people get confused about. I'm going to start with Gina this time. I feel like we're in Hollywood Squares. Of course, you have to be of a certain age to know what we're talking about in Hollywood Squares.
I know. That's why I keep wanting to look up.
Exactly. So terms, for example, backlinks, and maybe one or two other you can think of that confuse people. So Gina, would you like to start with that?
Yeah, and backlinks, again, could be just linking back. See how they do that? They make it make sense. Link back to another page or piece of content on your own website. So maybe I'm writing something and I say, for more information, read this post. And I link to a post that I wrote, 6 months ago. Or maybe I have an FAQ page and it has more in-depth answers, and I link from a blog post to that FAQ, or reverse, from the FAQ page to a blog post. So it's linking back somewhere deeper in your site to keep people learning more about your content or learning more about the topic you wrote about, is the concept that I think of for backlinks.
Jessica, would you like to expand?
Sure.
Or add to?
Just another thing that confuses people, I would say, is on Google Analytics, that bounce rate. The high scores are bad. You don't want a high score on bounce rate. The bounce rate means that they're only going to one page of your website and they're bouncing off. So the lower the score, the better. You can look at that, though, if you notice that you do have a higher bounce rate, and just dive in a little deeper. See why people are maybe coming to your homepage and then leaving. And it could be the whole responsive test that we talked about earlier, that maybe it's just not optimized for their viewing experience. So they leave your website. Or you can look at it. We've had it before. We've seen where there's an influx of maybe your bounce rate, and you can look and see where those bounces are coming from. Maybe it was a referral, search site that sometimes you can see if you dive into those referral sites that it's more of like a bot that's scanning, and you can block it. But that bounce rate is confusing, I think, to some people. You want it to be lower, not higher.
Well, and it's interesting because we had this discussion a week ago, and a guy pointed out something. He said, if you see the bounce rate on your homepage really high, ask yourself why. Maybe my page is loading slow. Maybe I have too many heavy graphics on it that I need to condense. But what if it was on a blog post and you had a high bounce rate on your blog? Maybe people are going to your blog post, they read your entire post, but a bounce rate is based on they don't go anywhere else. They read that post and then they close the link and they went somewhere else. It may not be a bad thing, but it's something for you to look at your analytics and make decisions based on those numbers. Maybe it's not, you just have to look at numbers and then ask why. Because it could be, But if it's on your homepage, I think there's some real big clues. Like, okay, they're leaving.
A client that they had actually where you could apply for a position and then also like drug screening results for this particular site, and it redirected to another website. So people had to go to the homepage though to get there. So their bounce rate, because that's a lot of the people were going to their homepage to get to that link and then leaving though because of the redirect. But we wouldn't have figured that out unless you dug deeper into the analytics. So that's a good point. Yep.
And ask questions. Yeah.
Mike, would you like to expand?
Well, I was just trying to think, and we'll open it up for questions too. So if audience here with us has any terms or things that we should define, things that they've had, that'd be great. I think, one of the terms you're seeing nowadays is called parallax, and parallax website design. And, I think that how do I define that in very, simple terms? I think the concept is maybe where the background of the site moves at a different speed as the rest of the page, and it kind of gives you an impressive. So instead of one long page of content, it gives you the feeling of different sections, and you can kind of scroll through it. So it feels like you're navigating the site by going to different pages, though you haven't left that single page. You are just moving through different sections, and it gives a nice visual feel as as things are happening, scrolling in that manner.
Yeah. And I always say it's like 3D. It's like text is moving over a picture, and then you keep going and there's just the picture, and then you keep going, there's more text, and so it makes it feel like it's interactive.
So that's just a design style that is gaining some popularity today. So that's just one to add to the mix.
Okay. All right.
And a lot of the new WordPress themes are, you see a lot of parallax. And it could be video that you're passing over with text. It could be some video, or it could be a picture, an image. So there's there's some cool things. But again, watch out for load time. Sometimes we put all these huge graphics, and then your site takes forever to load.
Yeah.
Yep. And
you're going to have
even defining that, I mean, the number of seconds, load time, the number of seconds it takes to load the content of the page for someone that's viewing it, so that you want to deliver the content as fast as possible, and you have to be prepared for not everybody always being on a high-speed internet connection. So they might be on their data on their phone, but can you still deliver that quickly to them? That's that page load that we're talking about. And
remember, everyone has the attention span of a goldfish. So if it doesn't load in seconds, they hit the back button and go back to Google.
Well, what as I've listened to all of you, the conversation, what we're talking about, is sort of lending itself to maybe people who are actively involved in their own website. And there are a lot of companies that they know nothing about what to check for, that type of thing. So would you encourage people, business owners who don't have that hands-on, to be checking the things that they could be checking themselves, to be looking for suggestions? Like a load time, for example. I don't, how often are they always checking their website at desktop level, or, have you checked it like we talked before from your mobile devices? Any suggestions?
There's a SEOsitecheckup.com, and it kind of will give you the insight of how well your load speed is, how well your SEO is performing, everything, a free report. So even if you're not someone that does it, you can still scan and be knowledgeable in how well your website is performing, and can send it to the appropriate people. But that site is amazing. Another one is marketinggrader.com, and you can use this too to give you a good insight to how well your website's performing, your content, and how other users are experiencing your website. They base it on criteria with social media, blogging, your site speed, and your SEO. So if you check out those two, it'll give you all the information that you really need to know, where you don't have to feel like you have to be a developer to understand it.
And sometimes, like doing Website Grader or Marketing Grader, those sites, they send you an email report. Even if you feel like this is too technical, send that to your web person. If you have somebody managing your website, send it to them and say, let's have a conversation. Let's talk about these to help me understand where we are against this and what needs to be done.
I really do think people should do that. Okay, ready for me to move on to the next one?
Let's do it.
Okay, here we go. I think this has been touched on some, I think, through Gina much earlier, but how often should you refresh the content on your site? Jessica, you want to start?
Sure. You should never stop refreshing content. You should always be refreshing content. Same thing with your website. When people are saying, when will our website be done? You may have a version of your website you're happy with, but your website and your content should never be finished. It's your number one salesperson. You should always be investing in it. That's 24/7. You should always be investing in your content. Yeah, it may depend on which page. I see on the sidebar here, the comments. But so your contact us page, you might not update that. But all the other pages of your website, including your blog, you need to be investing in content. Even if you're not revamping it, you're still linking in the new things that you've developed in your blog. So if you've answered a question that's come up that you know would be appropriate to another inside page on your website, like we talked about earlier, that's something that you'd want to put in there so you always continue to update your content and your website.
Yeah.
It's like, how often should you move your furniture around in your house?
Yeah.
Same thing, right? Daily.
Exactly. Well, we're talking about refreshing content. That's the question I posed. But then I want to add on to that. How often should you, I call it remodeling, but it's still refreshing. There are those who have websites for a long time. There are those that still aren't mobile responsive. We've discussed that. But is there a frequency by which you should, or benchmark that a person should use to decide how often they refresh their overall website?
Design and all those pieces?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is. I think that things are changing so fast today that, you got to be looking somewhere around that 3-year benchmark, probably, just because things are changing so rapidly. You think of just the mobile development, and so 4 years ago, maybe not so much. 3 years ago, yeah, a start. 2 years ago, gaining some speed. Today, critical. So that's kind of one of those factors, I think. And I think gone are the days where you can just have that same site out there, 6 years, and you're good to go. So that's just my personal impression and thought that you got to be taking a look at that 3-year kind of marker as a key. You might be able to get a little longer. You might have to go faster depending on your industry and such.
Well, I think about how we as various companies often go through somewhat of some level of rebranding, a different look. So if you're doing that, should you then make your website coincide with your brand look that you're changing in your logo? So
hands down.
Yes.
Which you can refresh your page. You can refresh your website by changing colors or changing logos or changing you can change the images on your website monthly if you wanted to. I mean, it's not recommended, but that doesn't take a lot of technical ability. But to change your entire theme of your website, sadly, we've done ours probably once a year, because as soon as it's done, I go, oh, there's something cooler and better out there. It's been like every 2 years. But it feels like I'm sure our guy Dwight, he thinks it's every year. But I do think you're supposed to change your mattress every 8 years. I mean, some of you haven't even changed your website in 8 years. So I think it should be more frequent than a mattress, less frequent than your underwear. Maybe we need these type of real specific benchmarks.
Well, I appreciate those benchmarks, Gina.
You don't want parasites, right?
Sure.
You're not staying away from the parasites. By changing.
That's good, Jessica. That's good. You see what you've gotten into having us with you, Mike? Okay, all right. So are we ready to move on to the next question? Well, I think we should. So here we go. Let's see. Okay, WordPress sites. I get this a lot. WordPress sites versus other types of sites. So I'm going to start with Mike on this one, and let's hear what you have to say about that.
Okay, so maybe we need to define it again. So WordPress is a open source web platform, so you can use it as the foundation for your site. And the open source means that a lot of developers can contribute to it, and WordPress has done a great job of building a solid, stable foundation that has a lot of benefits and a lot of value. So you can do a lot of things with WordPress from the get-go, but just by having a web developer set that up for you, deploy it, then you can have editable pages, you can add pages, you can have a blog. And the value of WordPress is that there's been a lot of themes. So those are the designs that you can add that have been created for them, so it can be cost effective. But as well, the powers in the plugins, some of the tools that you can add within them. So there's ones for, search engine optimization. So the team at Yoast has a Yoast SEO WordPress plugin, and that gives you just a lot of benefits as you're creating a page or a post to help you optimize that, and to optimize it for the search engine, to make sure everything's in place that way. So, that's just one example of a free plugin that you can add. But that's why WordPress is of value, is because there's been so much development around it that you can find a lot of solutions. If you have a need, probably somebody else has had that need already, and somebody else has done it in WordPress. So you can find different people, different plugins, different pieces that you can add to that and build out your site quickly and easily. It's kind of like a modular format. So that's one of the benefits and values of WordPress.
I know I went to a WordPress site long ago because I wanted to be able to write my own blog content, not write it and then turn it over to someone, pay someone X amount per hour to put in what I could do that wouldn't be hard to do. And when you're a small business, often budgets are small as well. And so you don't have a lot of bandwidth. So it is helpful to be able to have some power over the site, that you can go in and do something and not be a person with a technical background to do some of these simple things. Would you like to expand, Gina? Me too.
I love WordPress. I mean, we've had WordPress for years and years, which I thought was interesting. Is it Yusuf said 24% of the internet is on WordPress. That's interesting. I didn't know that. What I love about WordPress, and what a small business owner should know about WordPress, is if you're paying someone to develop a site for you, WordPress should keep your costs down, like you said, Donna, because there's so many awesome themes out there. And a theme is basically you're looking at saying, okay, I like the way this one looks. I like all the elements. Now you just plug in your images and pieces, and there's a lot less coding going on like there used to be. And then the plugins I look at them as like apps for your website that operate behind the scene. You can have a plugin or an app that helps your SEO, or you can have a plugin that adds a podcast feature to your website. There's probably a plugin, just like there's an app for everything, there's a plugin for everything. Mm-hmm. And it just makes it easy to further customize your website. And WordPress just has so many of them.
Really
I love it.
Jessica, would you like to expand?
And if you can work in Microsoft Word, you can work in WordPress.
I love WordPress as well for clients because of the customization and because there's an app and a plugin for everything. The only caution I say with WordPress is if you do add a lot of plugins and you customize it, it's amazing, it works. But if you're worried about site speed, like we talked about before, make sure you can host with WordPress. So if you're worried about those load speeds, and WordPress will actually help you kind of keep that speed up and going and manage your plugins, and make sure that if you're a business owner that is having those plugins in the back end of your website, especially the free ones, that you keep up to date on the updates that happen to the plugin, so you don't get in trouble there if something updates and then you're like, oh, why is my site down? Because you need to update it.
It's interesting because people say, I don't know how to update a plugin. And I say, you push a button that says update all plugins.
Yeah.
It's like apps.
Well, they first have to get into their back end to see the update.
I think everyone should learn how to log into the back end of your website, just so you realize it's not as scary as you thought.
All right. Then ready for the next one? We're almost to the end, which I'm going to really hate because it's been a great topic. We need a round 2 or 3, I think. All right. Reasons. And before I start with the question, you know, there are all these offerings now for on TV, on the internet, for just, a few dollars. We can give you an outstanding looking website, and you've heard it. You know what I mean? So here's the question. Or give us some reasons that you should interview a website designer And the questions, that's really a two-part question: reasons you should interview a website designer, and then questions you should be asking. And I'm going to start with Gina on the reasons you should interview a website designer. Would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, and it's interesting because we just had this discussion with a client yesterday who thought she owned her website, which I thought she owned the website, and the company that helped her design it, turns out she didn't even own her own website, which I don't know how that happens. But I think more importantly, you do need to know the questions to ask, because I think when we start talking about technical things, even, hiring someone to do SEO, you don't understand what they're talking about. So you're just thinking, okay, I guess I got to do it. I think you need to interview people who are doing your website just to see, how are we going to work together? And, are we able to jump on calls and you show me things? And I want you to educate me as you build it so that I can log into the back end after. And I want to know that what's helping me with SEO. And just because you say you're designing it doesn't mean you're doing SEO. And, there's just so many questions that are basic questions to ask. But if you don't ask them, a lot of times they won't tell you things. Not that they're trying to hide it, but a lot of times they're saying, we're going to design your website. And you assume that means you're going to write my copy and you're going to do SEO and you're going to do,
That's a good point.
and that doesn't mean that.
Yeah.
Mike, would you like to add to that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you want to just get a feel for their history in it. I mean, there can be somebody that says they're a web developer and they're using some template system and they're tossing something up. So you want to see what their background is. Have they been around for a number of years? Do they have a track record? And can you see some of their client examples? And is there something matching the complexity of what you are wanting? Is there something that's matching that? I think you need to check their capabilities. Just because someone says, hey, we can build you an e-commerce website, doesn't necessarily mean they have this skill in that. And, it's something that could be, if you're hoping to get live within 3 months and it's their first time, and so 8 months later, you're still working at it, is that helpful to you and your business? So I think you want to be interviewing them, and whatever they give you, you want to be reviewing in terms of scope of project. Does it outline, who's adding content, or does it outline, what the time length of the project's going to be? And can they show you relevant examples of things that have some of that same feature set that you're looking for that they've done in other places? And, so those are just keys. And you have to understand that whoever you want to work with, you're going to need to be contacting them, over time. Mm-hmm. And it's not something where you can say, oh, I don't like that person, but as long as they can build it cheap, it's good, because you're going to need to deal with them. And so you want to find somebody that you can, trust and enjoy working with over the long haul, because you're going to need to, because this is an important asset for you now for any business.
That's how I've made my decisions about, websites, is all those things you just mentioned.
Exactly.
And then not just the technical piece, but am I going to like this person? Mm-hmm. Am I going to, this could be a long-term relationship, because if they're, I want them to do a good job. And then when I want changes made or revising, whatever it is, I just want to keep coming back to that team of people that I'm comfortable with and I trust. I mean, that's just a huge piece. And now I know this next thing I'm about to say should be an obvious for people, but you really don't want Uncle Joe or your teenager to create your website. And I'm still seeing that happen. And so please don't do it. Yeah, don't do it.
Don't do it. And don't pay for the entire website up front. I have a friend who paid for the website. They told her she had to pay before they would turn the website over to her. It was like they were holding her site hostage. She paid up front and never got the site. Never, to this day, 8 years later. I mean, things like that you just think would be common sense, but you should have it worked out that, okay, I'll pay you half of it to start, or a portion of it to start, but then maybe you make increments so that you see the progress. Otherwise, you could have someone that strings you along, that takes too long.
And they may be stringing you along because they really don't know what they're doing, perhaps. That happens too.
Right.
lot of times you could be the holdup, because if they're
True.
waiting for you to write
A lot of
copy
it.
for the website, you know, so you do have to know all that up front of who's writing all the text that's on a website. Because I can remember being naive when I first did our first one. I thought they magically made a website appear.
Flip the switch
I was like,
back
oh,
there,
you need
and
me
your website
involved.
We already seen the layout of it.
Like,
Don't
oh, I
you
didn't
just
know how to
throw
do
it
it.
on there? We got the picture there. Just make it work. Yeah.
Make it
Yeah.
appear. So, you know those things up front. Yeah, that would be a great,
Yes.
and maybe you have that, Jessica, post. You're on all the posts you're putting
I
up here.
do.
A question to ask, because I think that is the key, is have that
Social
list
media
of
manager
questions
kind of works
and
both
really educate yourself.
But
Actually, I think that would be a good
Awesome.
thing for a blog post, a list of things
Yeah.
that people could go and get and take with them, or when they talk online about it, have some kind of framework to work from. And a lot of people don't; they just don't know what to ask.
exactly.
If the web developer or anybody in your business
Yes.
is using language you don't understand,
Right.
Yep.
ask them to explain it. I just think we get intimidated thinking, I'm sure I should understand this, so I won't even ask. But just say, okay, for a normal person,
We write it
what
two
would that
ways in our
mean?
proposal. We write it as a tech version and then explain it right underneath, so it makes sense to both. So they
That's great.
understand, here's the legal way of what we're writing, and then here's the exact way. Right? Yeah, exactly.
what does that mean for
Yep.
normal people?
Very good.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see.
Exactly.
Last one. Top keys for business sites. What would be the top keys for business sites as 2016 starts to unfold? Maybe sort of a summary. And I'll start with Mike first.
Okay. Well, I think that as this year winds down and we're looking ahead, I think you need to be taking a look at a number of the components we talked about today. So, is your site mobile responsive? And do you have a solid solution that way? So I think you definitely want that going into 2016. I think that now is a great time to think about your content plan and your content refreshing plan, just because content continues to be critical online and helping you establish your footprint, helping you to be found, giving you that foundation. But also more so just because of the importance of social media, and that's how content and social media work together, is you have something to share, your business does, online when you have fresh content. Yeah. And so, but by sharing on social media, you can have conversations with people there, but it ultimately can drive them back to your site. And so I think, that's critical. And that's my whole circle, is that you've got great content. You've shared that. You've engaged with them on social media. Through social media, they've discovered you. They come back to your site. That's where you want to have that next step, that lead capture, that lead opportunity, so that you can take the next step in a relationship with them. You get their name, their email address. You can send them something of value. But now with their email, you have another way to connect with them over the course of time to further, build trust and rapport with them. So I think those are just some foundational keys that are going to be important for 2016, and social media is a part of that. Jessica already mentioned it. You should at least be telling them when they come to your website where they can find you online. That's enough.
Gina,
for me.
would you like to expand on that? Thank you, Mike.
We're always looking at kind of the content galaxy, or the content. I'm looking at what's your core message, and that should be how your website content is designed. What is the core message? What are people typing in Google? Earlier you said to find keywords. It's just ask yourself, what do you think people are typing in Google to find your services? Not what do they type in to find you because they know your name, but what words do they type in to find your service? Make sure those words are woven through your content, so that becomes the core. Then you start looking at, okay, that spins off blog content, that spins off maybe a white paper, that spins off ebooks, that spins off, what are the pieces of content that you can create that drive people and link back to your website? And then even from there, spinning off graphics and quotes and things that drive people to those other pieces that drive people to your website. And so looking holistically at social isn't just out there to be social, which it's nice to do that, build community, but it should be driving people closer to the core of your content galaxy. And just giving thought to the holistic look of your marketing, not just social by itself, not just your website by itself, but
It's good.
how
Yeah.
do they all work together to achieve
Good.
those goals?
That's great, Gina. Thank you. All right, Jessica.
I would say
Anything?
everything should focus around building relationships. So if your content was written before for just a brochure, or you're just so focused on just showing up and, SEO, write it to the person that's going to be reading it like you really care. This SEO part will come naturally if you are truly writing it for them and what they'll be searching. But make sure you're just building good relationships. Give people what they're looking and trying to find on your website, throughout your blogs, through your social, and just be a good relationship builder. Show them just how much you care, and really specifically dive in to what they're looking for. When you do that, the rest will just follow. And just to touch off what Mike said and what Gina said, it is about responsive user experience, adding those visual components via video, and how people are responding and consuming content right now, which is video and visual content, and just adapt to that. So adapt to the changes. If you haven't already, just start adapting and refresh and refine, I would say.
It's great advice. Great advice. So would there be any parting comments before I ask you to share with each of you individually to, again, share with everyone how you can be contacted? So anything else that anyone would like to add before we start to close out?
I just say thanks for bringing us all together, Donna.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm glad to be with all of you. And Gina, we'll just have to talk about the story about how I met Gina. And it's all, all brought us together from online and then in person. But that's another story, maybe in a blog. Yeah. We'll see. All right. So here's what I'd like to do, starting with my Hollywood Square at the top and work down and over, is for you to briefly tell people how they can contact you. So starting with Mike.
All right, so I am going to put my website in here.
Good.
And you can find me at MikeGingrich.com. You can also find me on Twitter at Mike_Gingrich, and on Facebook, and all these things are there. You can come to my website and find all these pieces there. So
yeah, that's right.
You can find me on Facebook at Facebook.com/MikeGDigital. So those are a couple key things. And always take a look at my podcast, HalftimeMike.com. Awesome. HalftimeMike.com. Just try to do a weekly podcast on digital marketing tips, tactics, and opportunities to help digital marketers take the next steps forward online.
Okay, great. So
podcast is awesome.
Yes, Jessica with Now Group Marketing. So if you'll give some folks ways to contact you.
Sure. You can go to jessicaphillips.com, which is just my name.com, or you can click and follow me on Blab here or Twitter. But if you go to my website link, I'll put it here, you'll get to other websites that you can find me on, or Jessica Phillips on Twitter. Very easy to find online.
All right. Then my last Hollywood Square, Gina Shrek. With Social Connects KNX. Okay, tell everybody, Gina.
Like I always say, it's Shrek, like the movie. And just now, when everybody was saying, go to Mike Gingrich, go to JessicaPhillips.com, I was like, do I even have GinaShrek.com? Does it go anywhere?
It does.
It does go to my social website. So thank Dwight on our web team. He must have done that, because I was like, wonder if I have GinaShrek.com. There's a tip. Grab your name, right? Yeah, I go to GinaShrek.com. That makes it easy. SocialConnects.com is our site. That's where I blog. And on Twitter, I'm everywhere you want to be.
There you go.
I think we ended. I think I need to spend my Friday afternoons like this. And this is probably the best Friday the 13th
I know
I've ever had.
There we go.
We should have like happy hour. I mean, mine's coffee.
You always get your coffee, Gina. Yeah. Yeah.
Here's my caffeine, and not to give them a plug, but mine's like, I'm like,
okay.
Rockstar.
Well, as far as where you can contact me, I just tell people I'm all over the place. So, Donna Gilliland, lots of L's, GILLILAND. I would have to marry a man with a whole lot of L's and learn how to pronounce and spell my own name. But after 35 years, I finally got it down. So I'm on Facebook as Most Training, just one T in the name. And then, of course, you can also find me on my web, donnagolan.com. So I'm everywhere, Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, all the stuff. So.
And you share the best content. I love all this stuff.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. So.
Kind person on the social web, right there.
They're
right
in there. And I'm following you now too. So in there.
Yeah.
We feel the love. Let's just hug it out.
There you go.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay. Hey, this has been great. And this is good. This is good information. People need this information. So I think it's been great content on a very important topic.
Yeah. Very, very interesting and
I agree.
content for all of us.
Well, you're welcome. I hope you all have a great weekend.
You too. Thanks.
Okay.
All right. Take care, folks.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Have a good one. Over and out.
Bye.